Well, welcome to Richie's Roost. Kind of an interesting day today and yesterday. I know the last time we got together, I was going to tell you some things about James Earl, and I'm still going to do that, but I'm not going to do it today because there are a couple of things I need to check on to make sure I was accurate. So, we're not even meeting in my outside studio today. We're in my cave here at my house because I'm a little laid up today. As a matter of fact, yesterday I slipped in the carport and fell flat on my. James Earl would explain maybe a little different than I did, and he would be a little more specific. But I'm having a little trouble creeping around today. I'm wandering around here like hobbling like I was 85 years old. Um, Come to think of it, I am. So I thought I'd tell you one quick thing today. It's not going to be very long, and read a little story. We've got our website nailed down now. Finally had a little problem with it before, but it is Jim Ritchie. There it is, jimritchie.us. Both of my books are on there along with my CD. And what I've done, I'll give you a little background on these books. The first one is this one. Some of you may already know what it looks like. That one was done back when several years ago. And usually when a book like this is printed, you'll sell maybe 500 or 600 copies from what they told me. Well, we sold 4,000 of these on the first printing. And then I had a second printing of 4,000 made, and we've got less than half of those left. So it's been very successful. And then the second book is another Shockoe Tales book, Shavings Under the Southern Shade Tree, both of which were illustrated by my bride in pen and ink. She added considerably to it. So both of the books are on the website, and it's getting close to Christmas time. Might be thinking about some inexpensive gifts you might be able to give to somebody who likes to read or enjoys a little humor. And I decided I'd give you read a little story out of the first one. This is one of the things Perry did. She pen and ink. Can you see that? I hope you can. That old gator laying in the weeds. We'll get to him in a minute. But a lot of y'all don't live down here in the South, and so I wrote this story that I call Southern Style to kind of give you an idea about some of the things that we do down here and some of the ways we operate. I call it Southern Style, and it starts out like this. Southerners are a different breed of cat. It's hard to explain to other folks how we operate, especially in the humor department. You don't have to have a real knee-slapping, loud, raucous, hollering laughter situation to create a truly mirthful condition. And a lie ain't all bad if the conditions are right and you don't just tell one outright. It's like I said, it's hard to explain. I'm going to try to give you an example. A few years ago in Natchez, a Yankee down for the world-famous Natchez pilgrimage was having lunch at a local restaurant and was complaining to his bride about the high cost of frog legs on the menu. Now, he was overheard by one of the local sportsmen named Bubba. Bubba was being the self-appointed ambassador of goodwill for the community that the Chamber of Commerce seemed to approve of, loudly agreed with the man and offered to take him frog gigging, to give him a new hunting experience and to get some inexpensive frog legs. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, I'll digress here for a second with a frog gigging operation. It's done at night. You have a spotlight on your hat or around your head. You hold a frog gig, which is like a big broom handle with a hole in one end and a leather thong through that hole and wrapped around your wrist. The other end of the broomstick is a 3-tined spear. So you shine a light on a frog. You can see him, his eyes shine like diamonds in the dark. You ease up to him in the dark on a boat or waiting and jab the frog with the spear and then put him in a sack. That's how you hunt frogs. That's called frog gigging. Makes sense. Well, Bubba had offered to take this visitor frog gigging. The visitor, against the advice of his bride, I might add, accepted the invitation, obviously looking for a diversion from the hump skirts and antique furniture and mansions and lectures on the way it was stuff he had been subjected to for days. Well, that night they loaded up Bubba's old aluminum boat in the back of his pickup and headed for the local lake. They launched the boat, and Bubba, sitting up front and holding the light, paddled the boat, holding the 3-tined gig ready with the leather thong in the handle of the gig wrapped around his wrist. He spotted a bullfrog sitting on a lily pad and pointed him out to the Yankee who was sitting on the back seat of the boat. Then he eased up to the frog and jabbed hard. Well, the frog jumped away just in time, and the gig stabbed through the lily pad and into the thick back hide of a 10-foot alligator that had been lurking unseen under the pads with designs on the frog himself. Well, the gator went to roaring and splashing and rocking the boat, as you can imagine. Bubba dropped the light to the bottom of the boat before the Yankee could see what was happening and started trying to snatch that gig out of the gator's tough hide. It was pitch black dark, so all the Yankee could do was grab both sides of the boat, hang on, and hope Bubba knew what he was doing and listen to that frog roar. Leastwise, he thought it was the frog. Well, now Bubba had his own problems since the leather thong was wrapped around his wrist and he couldn't let go. But after a couple of lunges and somersaults by the gator, the gig came loose. The gator skedaddled, leaving a couple of serious dents and about 3 inches of water in the boat, along with one pale, shook-up Yankee who hadn't seen anything in the dark, but had been bounced around and splashed pretty good. Well, Bubba picked up the light and shined it on the gig, which had one tine pointing east, one tine pointing west, and the third straight up, and then he shined the light on the Yankee. Now, Bubba is not what you'd call a real liar, but when he saw the state the Yankee was in, he was opportunist enough to realize that he had a situation possibility he could share in the future around the truck stop with some of his cronies. He calmly informed the Yankee that he was glad the frog had got off. He said the game wardens are awful tough on limits this year, size limits. And I saw right away that little old frog wasn't big enough to legally keep. So we'll ease around to the other side of the lake and see if we can find some really big ones. Well, the Yankee informed Bubba that he had a severe sinus condition that was beginning to become a problem because of the heavy humidity on the lake and a bad back, and that he was allergic to mosquitoes and a few other ailments that he conjured up in a hurry, and that Bubba had best paddle him to over where the truck was parked and let him sit in the truck for a while until all of this stuff kind of settled down. Now, he didn't want to ruin the frog gigging expedition, so Bubba could just go on hunting frogs while he recuperated in the truck. Well, Bubba dutifully paddled him back by the truck, sympathizing with each of the symptoms that had been described to him and voicing his opinion that the Yankee was courteous enough to suffer in the truck by himself and not cut the hunt short. He let the Yankee out of the boat and eased on out into the dark and headed for the other side of the lake. Well, when he got to the other side, he'd locate a frog, shine the light just long enough to gig him, cut the light off, and bang the side of the boat with the paddle and splash around and yell a bunch and generally create enough disturbance so that the Yankee would understand that the battle had been joined. Well, after about an hour of this, Bubba returned with his catch wriggling inside a croaker sack and looking much the worse for wear. Now, the Yankee, who seemed to have regained his health, reached for the sack to help the bedraggled Bubba unload the boat. And Bubba said, I'd be a little careful with that sack. It was the last frog I gigged. It just grabbed a pretty fair-sized cottonmouth moccasin by the nape of his neck, and I couldn't make the son of a gun turn him loose. So I just sacked the both of them. Well, he's probably lost interest by now and spit him out. And so the snake is wandering around likely somewhere in the sack. And with all that wiggling, it's hard to figure out which is him and which is frogs. Well, the Yankee snatched his hand back and let Bubba, worn out as he was, beach and land the boat, stow the gig and paddle, and especially handle that sack. On the way back to town, in the course of their conversation, the Yankee reckoned as how he hadn't figured in all the effort that went into harvesting frog legs, and that the price didn't seem so high after all. Now you can see that Bubba didn't just come out and tell a bald-faced lie, except about the snake, but that was sort of incidental and minor and was probably done without a lot of forethought. But the whole operation was just kind of drifted along with, and natural conditions dictated what the action would be. And, well, if you don't understand what I'm saying, because I'm getting kind of balled up and trying to find the right words to tell you, just ask any Southerner what I mean, especially if he hunts or fishes. And I really believe he'll do his best to try to explain. And I can almost guarantee that he won't lie to you outright. Southern style. Those are the kinds of stories that are included in the book, and they'll run anywhere from cottonmouth moccasins to alligators to 3-year-olds to any tons of other stories. And I had a lady call me when I was in the office one day, and from Dallas. My secretary came in and said, "Jim, there's a lady from Dallas on the phone." And I said, "Who is it?" She said, "I don't know." So I answered the phone, and she said, "Is this the Jim Ritchie wrote that book, Shaco Tale thing?" I said, "Yes, it is." She said, "Well, I was at the airport getting ready to come to Dallas, and your book was down at the airport bookshop. So I just bought a copy of it. I just wanted to call you and tell you embarrassed me. And I said, well, I'm really sorry about that. I guess I didn't really mean to. She said, oh, actually, you didn't. Said the book did. She said, I was sitting on the plane reading on the way back to Dallas, and I was on about page 42 or something like that. And she said, I happened to look up, and the folks around me were looking at me strange. I didn't realize until then that I'd been laughing out loud. And she said, that makes people nervous, watching people read something and laughing out loud. So I was kind of embarrassed, and I had to explain to them what I was reading. And I loved getting stories like that, and got a lot of them. So they're good ones if you like old Southern humor. And if you know someone who does, it might make a good Christmas present. So go to jimritchie.us, and you'll be able to pick up one or the other, both of them. I'm not going to have them reprinted, so there's not that many of them left, of either one of them. I've printed enough and sold enough, and I'm going to wind it up with them now. So I will be back with you next week. We are going to hopefully get into the thing about what the accomplishments of James Earl were, some of them, and some more about some of the things that he and I got involved in that endeared him to me. So, have a good week. I'm Jim Ritchie, and I'll see you again next time.